Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing today? Good? Awesome. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. If you are not familiar with how this works, it is a community organization ran by us amazing volunteers up here. We let two businesses get up each week and essentially talk about their business for 6 minutes. We then open it up to the expert panel for questions, and then we open it up to you guys. We are live streaming, but also don't forget to check in through the 1 Million Cups app so you can see who else is here, and you can also provide feedback to the presenters through the app as well. With that being said, let me introduce the expert panel.
Hello. My name's Lance Windhals. I am the general manager and partner of Black Ops Development, software development company here in town, focused on mobile apps, SaaS products, the like. In addition, I own a liquor store. I've built several of my own apps. I started a sunglass brand. I run a co-working space and a couple other things. So definitely love being an entrepreneur and starting new things.
Hi, I'm Ben Kittrell, co-founder of DoodleKit. It's a website builder for small businesses used by millions of people across the world. I'm also an advisor and consultant for a number of local startups.
Thank you, guys. We'd also like to welcome Cup of Joe this morning, so let's give a round of applause for Cup of Joe for being here. Awesome. Now keep it going for Yaya Rice with E. Butler. Round of applause. That's what keep it going means.
Thank you. Good morning. As was stated, my name is Yahya Rice, and I am the owner of Alamron Technologies, which is a local technical solutions company. And I have worked in the IT field roughly since 1998. And as a result of that, I've had quite a few opportunities to travel domestically as well as internationally. And of course, with the travels, oftentimes I'll stay in hotels. And while staying in those hotels, I've discovered a need. And we live in a time where international travel is a very big part of our culture, be that here in the States as well as internationally. And reasons related to vacations or business has prompted the citizens of this world to travel to distant countries. And oftentimes those individuals will stay in hotels. And a significant issue to consider when staying in a hotel is the guest experience. And so how often or how much will the guests enjoy staying in the hotel? And related to this is how well can the hotel guests communicate or convey their desire for particular services offered by that hotel to the hotel staff. And so depending on how well they're able to convey those ideas or their thoughts or the desires to the hotel staff can determine whether or not they're going to have a very good guest experience or determine whether or not they want to come back and visit that particular hotel. And so an absence of a mutual means of communicating, of verbal communication, can significantly lower or disappoint that guest experience and make that guest experience not so great. And so with that, if the guest experience is not so great, or if the guests or the patrons are not able to, for example, get the exact dining options that they're interested in or other services, that could be potentially missed out revenue for that hotel. And of course, if the guests feel that they can have a better experience at a different hotel, then they may choose to go to another hotel. And so related to that is that it doesn't necessarily mean that individuals could have a problem just when there's not a mutual means of verbal communication. Even if we share the same language, if we have regional differences in the way that we speak or accents, there could be some misunderstanding as to what exactly the services that the guest is trying to get from that hotel. And so E. Butler has a solution to this problem. E. Butler employs a universal means of communicating and bypasses the need for a mutual verbal one. Hotels no longer need to worry if room menus and/or services are easy to read and understand by their guests. E. Butler ensures a mutual, enjoyable guest experience without embarrassing the guest or hotel staff when trying to determine exactly what it is that the guests are seeking. The theory behind eButler is that we will provide the hotel room, every hotel room, with a guest tablet, and the tablet will have the eButler application installed on it. eButler would be uniquely configured for a particular hotel, and it would market the products and services for that particular hotel that they're trying to market to their guests. The application is user-friendly and will allow guests the choice of choosing from any of the desired services, again, that the hotel was trying to market at that time. What makes eButler universal is that instead of using words to market the product, we use pictures. So the guest can scroll through the application and select the desired products via finger click. The number next to the product increases on every click, signifying the number of requested items. And the option is given to decrease the select if a mistake is made. After all the desired products and/or services needed at the time are selected, the guest clicks a submit button. A universal green check mark is displayed, and a message is sent to the front desk providing a room number originating the request, the product and/or services desired, and the time the request was made. Hotel guest services will then deliver the product to the hotel room, and the guest signs for acceptance, and the price for the services is charged back to the hotel room. And so in this particular case, there's no need for any type of verbal communication between the hotel staff and the hotel patrons. And so there's no discomfort or miscommunication or embarrassment due to the fact that there's no means of, or mutual means of a verbal communication. eButler just isn't marketed to the international audience. National hotel patrons would enjoy a guest tablet listing all available hotel services with a single click. I recently did a presentation for my niece, who is an undergraduate college student right now, and she thought that her generation would really enjoy using a product like this. And so I mentioned that to say that this is something that clearly I think this is the direction that the hotel industry should go in and eliminate or try to change their traditional processes and go more towards an electronic process. And so the beauty behind this direction as well is that hotels have a model where they have phone numbers and menus, a list of phone numbers and menus next to the phone in the hotel room. And so depending on what they're trying, the market that, or the products that they're trying to market and sell at that particular time, they'll have to update those menus and update those phone numbers if there's a change and so forth. So that's additional paper, a waste of paper and so forth. And then also we have to make sure, they have to make sure that the products that they're trying to market are, there's some type of a universal or understandable level of English or whatever that's needed so that international guests can understand exactly what those products are. So the go-to market on this is that eButler, we want to get this in front of hotel decision makers because traditionally hotels deal with vendors that sell traditional hotel vending products, be the towels or toilet tissue or so forth and so on. This is an electronic product, and so there's no, there's no traditional vending, hotel vending market for that. So we want to get this in front of hotel decision makers so they can see the innovation and see the cost savings associated with that. So that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. With that, we will turn it over to our expert panelists for the first round of questions.
So do you have you put this in front of any hotels yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I've got on some hotel vendor lists, but again, you know, the issue has been that since it's not a traditional vending product, I haven't heard anything back.
Okay.
So
So do you have a plan on how you're going to sell this, or do you know like maybe a specific market even within the hotel industry that you want it, like a certain size of hotel or?
Ideally, I think the larger hotels, due to the fact that I think that there would be more of an international audience that may consider those bigger hotel chains. And so, and I think also probably the larger hotels would be willing to work with a product like this, even for their domestic audience. So.
Have you tried to put together any, you mentioned cost savings, have you thought about, like, made some specific numbers or some hypotheticals on what they might be able to save? Because seems like that would be the main selling point.
Haven't done that, but that's definitely something that I could work on. But it would be associated with the savings that they would get from the amount of what they spend on for generating those menus and other paper products that they have in their existing hotels, and so, and replacing those. And so that would basically be eliminated if they have a electronic alternative.
Have you done any research into competitors in the market?
I have, and so far I haven't seen anything that would compete with this or that's currently competing with it. But as with technology, I mean, eventually, there's innovation and so forth. So I wanted to be one of the trendsetters and get into it from the beginning.
Right. My last question would be, the first thing that I thought of was theft. What would be the plan on preventing people from taking the tablet?
Well, I mean, we would work with the engineers in the hotel industry. So every hotel would want to basically set the product in a way that they would try to preserve it as best they could. But there's always a potential for theft. But the beauty now is that when you purchase a hotel room, you pay with credit card. And so if the guests just insisted on stealing the product, then they would just get that taken off of their credit card. So.
Kind of playing on the tablet question, what made you decide to go down providing a physical device for each room? Obviously hotels can number in the hundreds to thousands,
right?
And that many tablets can become costly. What made you decide to put that physical device in each room versus creating an app that could be installed and marketing it to the consumer instead of providing an actual physical product? Right.
The beauty of that is that tablets can serve so many different purposes. In that, in a hotel room, there could be games that could be played on the tablet. There's other uses associated with that, possibly checking emails and everything else. And that's kind of the direction, the cultural direction that technology is going, the use of tablets or smart devices. And so this could be a hotel guest that doesn't actually have a smartphone or whatever, or didn't bring their smartphone to the hotel. And so having an actual tablet in the room, a hospitality or guest tablet, is kind of going in the direction that technology is heading in that direction, to say that instead of using all this paper, we've replaced this with an actual tablet. And so to download that would be somewhat difficult, because every time, realize the hotel would have to market this specifically to say that these are the products we want to market at this particular hotel. There'd be an option for that, but then what if the guest doesn't have a smart device with them at that time? And so, and I think that a tablet is much better in the sense that the guest doesn't have to worry about downloading something, then deleting it once they're done using it. And so they can just use the guest tablet at the hotel, have their fun with that, leave it there, and then go about their business.
The other question I had is, looking at a lot of the amenities that you had listed, most of those I associated with room service. Have you thought about allowing the user in the room to request or deny room service, saving them labor costs through the long term as well?
Well, absolutely. I mean, with room service, there's different things associated with room service. For example, you may want towels, but also you may call the front desk to find out what's the dining or the restaurant's phone number, okay? And so that's associated with room service as well. And so the requests for towels or robes or so forth are not necessarily money driven, but definitely, talking to the restaurant, and services related to that are money driven. And so eButler takes into account both of those, because there could be money driven requests and non-money driven requests.
Nice, awesome. And then last question, you showed a little bit about the front end and the user experience. How does all that information get relayed back to the hotel and specifically to the right people, either in the kitchen or at the front desk, or so that they can act upon it?
Right, okay. We would probably, in most cases, work with the hotel's existing email system. And so we would depending on how they wanted to set that up, we could have emails that could be sent to the front desk. The front desk could then convey that information to the restaurant if that was needed, the gift shop and so forth. And so kind of the way things are done now that if you call the front desk, they may transfer you to to a restaurant or something. We could set it up that if specific, like the emails could go to different locations depending on the type of request that was made. So we would work with the hotels and figure out exactly how we want to handle that.
We're going to turn it over to you guys for questions, so get those hands up. I'll kick it off real quick. Where is the tech at right now? Do you have this app built?
Yeah, the app is built, and so it's basically very generic right now. So, but if a hotel was interested in the product, or if we wanted to demo it for a particular hotel, we might brand it with the hotel colors, a hotel logo, and so forth, to let them know how this could potentially look for them. So,
Is it Yaya?
yes.
Well, good morning. Thank
Good
you
morning.
for coming to 1 Million Cups. Okay.
you.
So I get it that you're kind of an early stage company, so you don't have any customers, the app's not fully developed. You're here because it's a good place to be when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out and get some feedback. One, the eButler name, if you just Google it, there's like 10 products that own that intellectual property for that. So you may want to consider that may not be the route to go down, put a lot of investment in, because what's kind of a generic name anyway, but regardless, I'm not sure you could get the intellectual property protection you wanted for that in an electronic application. I just found 4 of them in 15 seconds. So my question is if you're targeting hotels, do you have partners that work in that field? Are you experienced with the logistics of that business? That's a low margin business with several million rooms. That's a huge CapEx business. And have you been to even one of the industry conferences? So, I mean, what are you doing to find out? I mean, it's great that you've come up with this idea, but how are you finding out what the customer, and maybe the customer isn't the hotel, maybe it's something else that pulls through the chains, but what are you doing to find out what they are demanding in the industry marketplace?
Okay, very good question. I have got on, previously I was on some vendor list, signed up to get on some vendor lists for some bigger hotel chains. Didn't have any success with that. But in regards to trying to make those connections within the hotel industry, I've tried to do that, but I would like some help in getting in contact or making some connections with individuals that actually have connections with decision makers in the hotel industry. In regards to your first comment about the actual name, I'm very open to changing that or whatever else, because that's a very small part of the product at this point. So it's something that I started with or whatever else, and so of course, like as in technology, people are going to borrow things and still think. Got to start somewhere, exactly. And so. So anyway, I've tried to make those connections in that regards, but so I think I need some help with the person that actually has those, partner possibly with that person that has those connections, and then work with them. You're right, there is, I know that there is a small margin of profit related to those type of things, but the beauty is, again, is that I think this is the direction that technology is eventually going to take the hotel industry. And so it's something that I think that will eventually, that they're going to understand this is what we have to do, because the current process is really quite clumsy if you think about it. Like I said, because depending on the hotels that you go to, for the most part, they have like a book that has their menu of dining items and so forth, and the other amenities in the hotel, and so that's eventually going to go away. So I think it's. What's that?
People steal those.
Well, yeah, very well. And
Why?
so,
I never do.
yeah. And so I think this is the direction that it's eventually going to go. And so I just want to be at the front end of that. So.
Question back here.
More comments than questions, but I worked as a front desk clerk in college, so to avoid as much human contact as possible, I'm all for that. And now, I actually agree with you. The app thing, I wouldn't do the app either, because if people don't download it, then you now have 2 different avenues that you still need to have the front desk people with the phone and then those with the app. You're managing 2 different things. So I think actually not doing the app is better, and you can use that as a selling point with the hotels. Like, we want to use tablets because this way everybody will use this one system. The one thing I would suggest is this tying into the email thing on the back end. I think you need to offer the whole front-to-end thing. So I think you need to offer some kind of tablet system on the back end, so you can put one in the room service area, one at the front desk. Because I mean, if I'm checking people in, I don't have access to the emails while I'm working. So I think you should consider some kind of, larger tablet or some tablet that goes right at the front desk for all those things, and one in the kitchen and all that.
Oh, very good. Just to respond to what you said, I think that's an excellent idea. And in fact, with my existing code base, I mean, that's something I could do. And so depending on what the hotels, exactly the way they wanted to handle that, and so you said you actually worked in the industry and you have an idea as to what they would like best. If they wanted to go that route, we could do that quite easily. So.
Question here in the center.
The hospitality market is being disrupted because of Airbnb and others like that. So they're looking for unique customer experiences. So I think this is potentially a really good opportunity. Hospitality Network, many of them work with value-added resellers. Value-added resellers bundle technologies and sell them and implement them for the hospitality industry. So I would recommend working with value-added resellers and potentially integrating your technology in with other technologies.
Awesome. Thank you.
Question here on your left.
Hi, this is a great idea. I know that you are in the very early stage, but based on what you are presenting, it sounds like you maybe need to do a whole lot more research. By that I mean talk to people who are in your position that you described when you first started, which is guests and what do they need. Because it's much more than food or a roll of toilet tissue that people often want to communicate about. And so how do you do that? You talked about using the tablet. I think that's a great idea as well, but you need to think about how you might want to integrate voice into it so that when you call and ask for a restaurant, you can be looking at their menu while you're talking to the restaurant, things like that. But then picking up on the other previous comment, using emails as a way of sending information to other departments in the hotel is not even a way you should approach going into, unless it's an extremely low-budget hotel, which is much less likely to implement something like this. They really need to see updates, and you can walk into even a McDonald's and see how they handle orders that are taken at the drive-up window and how they're processed, and you need to have something similar to that. It's a great idea, but I think you need to have a broader vision and some excitement about how you can solve a whole host of problems, not simply the guest front desk communication.
Okay.
Question here on your left.
Couldn't this integrate with a smart TV, and then you would eliminate the need for a tablet in every room?
Very good question, yes, and it could. And so, yes.
Question back here on the left.
Mine's not a question, it's more like a statement. Getting back to the theft issue, basically, if you delete money from somebody's credit card, that could cause a sense of anger and get you a bad word of mouth reputation. So I'm wondering what other alternatives do you have for stolen stuff? Because that don't seem like a good idea, because people get angry when you start deleting stuff that they didn't contract for. You know, they'll call and report you to Better Business Bureau and other places.
Yeah, I think probably we would work with the hotel to, there would probably be some type of a contract with the hotel and their patrons to let them know that, like generally when you take, right, but this would be between the hotel patron and the hotel, in the sense that when you take something from the hotel that you're not supposed to take, like if a person decides to, take a television, whatever, from a hotel room, then eventually what's going to happen is that money is going to be deducted from their credit card. They may not like that, but it's...
They
sign that in the agreements, okay.
Yeah, we probably work with the hotel engineers to figure out the best way of working around a situation like that.
Question back here for you, man.
Question, comment. I like the idea. I did see, someone is doing this. I saw a thing about 2 weeks ago. I don't remember if it was United Arab Emirates or maybe Shenzhen, China. But basically, they gave every guest a tablet. The tablet stayed with the room and with the guest. It was more for high-end type guest. So the tablet would be configured with local restaurants that partnered with the hotel. The tablet could also be used to make local phone calls. So if the person was from out of town, they didn't have to have the high rates on their cellular. There were some other neat things they did along with that. But I would think in terms of hospitality and that, and getting in the market, that might be a better direction for you. I can't remember where I saw it, but I think it was either Shenzhen, China, or United Arab Emirates. Okay. And they were doing what you're doing, and that might be a good chance for you to, see what other people are doing in that arena. So,
Question right here.
Hi, yeah, this is more of a design observation. When you were looking at like the checkout page and everything like that, you said you just included images. Would you care to elaborate how the customer can distinguish between the different images and clarify what exactly they're getting? Because even the picture you showed me right there for like the cup of coffee, for example, that could be mistaken as a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and how do you determine sizes and everything like that? So one observation you might want to consider is putting in a short, brief description. I can see how the language barrier might be a problem, but I feel like with a simple tab of like, or being able, person be able to select their language of choice, even just throwing the description into Google Translate, you can get that up really quickly and clarify what exactly the person is ordering and everything like that, because I feel like that could cause some miscommunication right there.
Okay. Question back here for you again.
Have you ever thought of providing a limited amount of tablets for each hotels, because that way it will only be given to those who really need the tablet, and for others who already have a smartphone or a tablet, they would just download the app?
Yeah, as far as providing a limited number of tablets to the hotels, that is something that we could talk with the hotels about as to how they wanted to exactly market this product to their guests. If they wanted a limited number and then, have the guests check out the tablet for additional fee, depending on how they wanted to do that, how they wanted to market that with them. But that was something that I have considered as well. So,
Over on your right. Great presentation. Can you give us a little background as to how you identified this problem and a little bit more just about your entrepreneurial journey to come up with this?
Sure. The way I identified the problem is, like I said, just because of I work within IT. I've stayed in quite a few different hotels nationally and internationally. And, I always thought about the situation of where, like, English is pretty much considered like the language of trade. But if you have a situation where a person may not speak English very well, as an example, okay, and they may be a bit shy in asking for some specific types of things. And so as a result, they may just decide not to ask for those things. For example, maybe they know the restaurant, if there's a steak or whatever that they're selling, but they're not exactly sure how to ask for that. And so they may just avoid it altogether. And so they may miss out on those opportunities in the fact that if they, for example, if they are from China, for example, but they know that the hotel down the street or whatever has a person that speaks Mandarin or something that can convey their ideas to the hotel staff. And so I saw that as a potential a problem, especially due to the fact that the world is a much smaller place now, and international travel is such a big issue that lack of having a mutual means of verbal communication shouldn't be a means for person or individuals missing out on a complete hotel experience. And so this was kind of the theory behind it.
All right, and last question. What can we as a community do to help you?
Well, appreciate all the feedback that everyone has provided. I think, right now, just direction in finding those decision makers in the hotel industry would be really ideal, or any type of partnership or something in that regard would be very helpful. And then I think, again, also the feedback that was provided will, help me make improvements on the product. So, yeah.
All right, big round of applause. All right, if you have been to 1 million cups 10 times or more, raise your hand. If you do not have one of these fancy mugs, keep your hand up. How about right over here? Please tell us your name and why you come to 1 million cups.
My name's Annette Weeks. I'm actually from St. Joseph, Missouri. We started the Cup of Joe that you mentioned earlier up there, so we like to come down every once in a while to see what's going on here. So we appreciate the alliance with you.
Thanks for being here. And our weekly segment of Audience Connection. So if you are in need of accounting or bookkeeping help with your business, please raise your hand. One. A few? Okay, we've got a few. If you provide those services, please raise your hand. No one here? Okay, well, what we would ask is that at the end of the segment, if you want to meet in the back corner, you can kind of meet each other and see if there are ways to help each other. And unfortunately, we had a second presenter cancel last night, so we are going to put on a panel. Luke, are you leading the show? All right, then I'm going to turn it over to Luke Wade.
All right, guys, we are going to do a panel this morning. If you are unaware, May is Mental Health Month, so I'm actually going to ask a couple questions around how these entrepreneurs deal with stress and things like that. But first, I'm going to start out with you guys just giving a quick intro of yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Ben Kittrell, co-founder of DoodleKit, as I mentioned earlier.
My name is Mike Meyer. I'm part of a family business called Meyer Music here in town.
Lance Windhall still, and still working in software development.
Awesome. All right, so one of the things about entrepreneurship is there's the big ups, there's the big downs, there's a lot of swings, there's great times, there's horrible times. So can you guys briefly talk about one of those times that was really, really bad and then how you dealt with it? I'm going to start with a really hardball here for you guys this morning. So
I was involved with the startup about 4 years ago. We spent a year really working on this product. We spent a lot of money, a lot of time, hired a great team. I mean, a really amazing team, one of those, like, we all still, constantly talk to each other. We're a family now kind of team. We built a great product. We were nominated for an award at South by Southwest, all this stuff. And right when we were about to launch it, the money guy basically told us we ran out of money, and we didn't really, nobody had really known that we were in this dire of a situation. And that was really significant for me because it was something that I had dedicated a large portion of my mind to, if that makes sense. And so it was almost, I almost describe it as sort of all the synapses in my brain were pointed in this direction, and all of a sudden this thing wasn't there anymore. So that was a pretty significant event in my startup history.
So I kind of have a different deal because even though I'm not really a startup, because our company's been around for 50 years, we've seen a market shift and a real change real quick that we had to adapt to. And one was that we thought that we were going to be a distributor of a very high-end, very specialized niche product for the music industry. And so we had loaded up on several $100,000 worth of this stuff. And we were seeing a certain flow of customers come in to get this. And then really in a very, very short time, the internet happened. And we were all sitting there with all this stuff and this money, and the customers went away. So we were trying to figure out, okay, what do we do? How do we get rid of this couple $100,000 worth of stuff that we have, and how do we shift and pivot our strategy to be different to today's consumer. So I think sitting there looking at that, trying to justify, and I work in a family business, so not only did I have that, I had to sit and tell my family what were we going to do. But really shift and pivot our strategy for sales, because when online happened, the brick and mortar retailer had to significantly change their game and change their strategy of how they were going to sell, and still do that and maintain a profit margin that would make you be able to stay there. So luckily we did that, and I think that was one of the things that we really came out of stronger. It's been one of the best decisions that we've made 15, 20 years later now.
Good question. I think anytime you're starting something up or an entrepreneur, you're going to go through a lot of ups and downs. One specific that I remember and I like telling is I built a sunglass brand called Wyco, Wyco.club. They're interchangeable sunglasses. The idea was, users could come in and pick everything from what color lenses, frames, temples, grab additional pieces, and just have a lot more variety in their sunglasses. So went through all this manufacturing, working with China, staying up till 4 a.m. to communicate with the factory. Got the shipment of boxes, unloaded them. My basement went from, a man cave to just storage of sunglasses. And the manufacturer, the way the lens pop into the frame, they had cut the groove too small. So I had all this product that I had spent all day, months and months engineering, months negotiating, hours unpacking, and I could not get a lens into a frame. So I'm pretty sure I ran through the house, dove face first into the couch, and tried to shove my head into the cushions as far as I could. And probably laid there for about 10 minutes. And then popped up and said, "Know what? Let's call the manufacturer. They're going to replace all this. I'm not going to stand for anything less." And they did. So it's a good example of, you can crash and then be right back at the top in a matter of hours or days sometimes. But that was one that was one of those lows.
Awesome. Ben, I want to dive a little deeper. When your investor or money person basically said you were done, is there one thing or a couple things that you can attribute to, like what did you do and why did you do that? Is there anything that you would attribute, like that you learned out of that you still do today to overcome things like that?
That's a good question. I still don't know if I'm dealing with it. It's been a long time. I kind of rely, or I go back to the fact that it was an amazing experience. It was something that even though it's gone and that opportunity is lost and all of that, I learned so much from that, and I kind of like to think about that. And also talking with the other people that are still having a relationship with the other people involved, because that was really one of the biggest losses, is this like family that we created was broken up. But I think kind of just in general on this topic, I think that if we're talking about mental health, I think that we don't talk enough about the fact that there are therapists out there and there is medication out there that can help with some of these things and help you get through some of these things. I think that should be an option that everyone should consider when you are dealing with these things, because it is hard and it is taxing to. It's almost a requisite part of being an entrepreneur is going through really stressful and depressing times. I've definitely utilized therapists and things like and medication to help me through different things. So, and I also think a great partner is really important, and that's sometimes easier said than done. But I've relied heavily on my wife to help me through these times. She still says she remembers the day I came home that day, and she knew as soon as she saw my face, like, that something really bad had happened, and she was there for me through that. So
awesome. So with that being said, Mike, you can start with what's one thing you try and do every day to help control those swings, whether it's medication or exercise or meditation? Is there one thing that you do every day that you've been doing, obviously not 50 years, but that you've been doing to control your ups and downs?
Yeah, I think. I would say, believe it or not, exercise, keep yourself as healthy as you can keep yourself. Because if you're really going to do the grind of it, and you're really going to take that emotional stress, you've got to have a physical body that can help get you through that. I think that probably the other thing that I do is I have the very good fortune of working with my family, and my mom and dad are a great source of knowledge that can call and help calm me down. But I also tried really hard from an early part in my career to surround myself with other people who had done things that I could call and build my network. I'm a 20-year Rotarian, and the thing that was fun about being in that group is that there's nobody that can relate to the stress as an entrepreneur or an owner that you're going to have other than an entrepreneur, and especially another owner who's had that responsibility of making payroll and dealing with employee issues, dealing with business things, dealing with having to pivot your strategy really quick. And so those people who aren't right there in your business every day but have been through the emotional things that you've been through are a really great place to lean. And so I make a lot of phone calls to a lot of people on a regular basis just when I think I've got something that I need to figure out, and just ask for their help. And just hearing an outsider's voice, or just going to that Rotary meeting on a Wednesday morning and sitting there next to a guy who's done what I'm doing and is 20 years older than me, and having him go, it's going to be okay. It's like having a therapist, but I don't pay $150 an hour for it. You know, so I think your network is a huge, huge piece of your therapy. And so build your network of people that can help support you through those times when that happens.
Awesome. Lance, are you still shoving your head in the pillow every day?
Yes, it's actually good practice. So that's tough. I mean, obviously, when you have a big event like Ben went through, it's hard to maintain your emotion. You know, day to day for me is less about those big events and more about just maintaining consistency and organization. So for me, one of the biggest pain points is my inbox, constantly filling up. It's constantly this task that hangs in the air that needs some sort of response. And a lot of times, and what I've done is kind of focus on identifying everything that comes in. Do I really need to touch this today, right now? Or is it something that could be pushed off for a day, pushed off for a week? So there's a lot of great tools, and I use one called Sorted, S-O-R-T-D. And it's a plugin for your Gmail inbox, and it allows you to build kind of a Trello board of different things. And I've categorized, you know, high, medium, low, keep it real simple. And every email that comes in, I look at it and I decide at that moment, how important is this? Is this low priority? I can get to it when I have time, over the weekend when I'm catching up. Is it medium? It has a due date that I need to be aware of? Or is it something that I need to jump on right then and right there? And what that does is it helps take this mass of things you have to do and really puts it and organizes it into a task list that you can accomplish. And so at the end of the day, when you've accomplished that smaller subset, you feel like you've done something versus looking at this, you know, never-ending list of things you have to do, which as an entrepreneur is always growing and will never end. So you really have to manage that.
Awesome. You literally read my mind, because I was about to ask what's one tool, app, or document or whatever. What's one thing you use every day? So yours is Sorted. Ben, you want to start? What's one thing you use every day, a tool that we may not know about, or maybe that we do that helps you manage your life?
I use sort of a getting things done methodology. If you've heard of that, it's basically a productivity methodology that helps you basically get everything that's in your brain out onto paper or into a system. There is a number of different ways you can actually do it, but it's basically you do a brain dump, and you list out everything from, you know, things you need to do at work to cleaning out the garage at home, anything that's on your mind, and then you attach an actual next action to each of those things on the list. So anyway, check it out, GTD, or Getting Things Done. So I use just a notebook, and I write out lists and things like that. And I also use Evernote to do journaling every day, just kind of like what's on my mind. Kind of, it's almost like I'm talking to myself, and I kind of am able to kind of talk myself through some things. Yeah, I think that's about it.
I think mine is just clearing my inbox when things that are completed are done and getting them out of there. So I typically spend all week getting emails and doing everything, and then on Saturday, I'm in retail, so I work Saturdays, but I'll set in my office on Saturday and I clear everything out of that inbox that is done, so that the only things that are left in the inbox are the things that are undone. And I'm always shocked when I get to sit down on Saturday morning and start it, because there's, you know, hundreds of emails that I got to go through, but I'm always shocked when I get to the end of it that, hey, I'm in pretty good shape, you know, and I make a list off of that. I like that, writing the stuff down, just a list that I can cross out of the big things that I got to do. But I would just say don't let that become this big albatross that becomes so unmanageable you can't do anything with it. Just clean it out on a weekly basis and leave just the things that you have to complete. So my to-do list, my dad's was always an index card in his pocket of his shirt, and mine is now my iPad with my email inbox. And if I clean it out weekly, I know I'm going to be good.
Another thing that I've done, kind of adding on to what these guys have said and what I said earlier, is setting structure to your day. So a lot of times you get kind of momentum, and then a meeting pops up and just kills any momentum you're at, ruins your train of thought. So I've started focusing on planning meetings first thing in the morning, very end of day. Those are the 2 times I take meetings. Between then is my time to get stuff done that I need to. And then on a rare occasion, you break that rule. But it's worked out really well. It helps me keep consistency and, you know, be able to keep that momentum of thought when I'm working on stuff. It also kind of helps you beat traffic. Instead of getting stuck in it, I'm going and I'm meeting during traffic, and then I can get to where I need to be much quicker. Losing time in traffic every day is my, you know, arch nemesis.
Yeah, so a lot of entrepreneurs call that batching. I do that quite a bit, where you only answer emails for 3 hours a day, and then you focus on everything else. That way you're not jumping between an email to a meeting back and forth, so we do that. But anyway, so we want to ask questions from you guys. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. It can be about anything. It doesn't have to be about mental health. You can ask these guys about their business, how they got started, whatever you want to ask.
Hey, I have a really quick announcement. William Bennett, I have your wallet. So if you're still in the room, is that you? Okay.
Courtney's been practicing her
stole all
pickpocket
of your
skills.
money.
Yeah. Check your wallets, everybody, now.
Question
Okay,
over here
no
on your right.
questions.
Yeah, not so much a question, but just a statement. I think this is exciting stuff, and I'll tell you why. Several years ago, Meg Hirschfield was in this room here, and she was the spouse of the, Stonyfield Farms, okay, yogurt and all that good stuff. And she was dripping in diamonds and things of that. But she wrote an article for Inc. about family life during an entrepreneurship and a startup. It became the #1 article in Inc. in the history. So they started having her write it once a month, and she ended up with a book, and it's called For Better or For Work. And it takes a partnership or a family and goes through all the different elements of it, and I'll tell you, it's very, very impactful, because all of us experience that. So it's kind of those that are on the stage and those that aren't on the stage, like Ben was talking about. But I would highly recommend that.
Over here to your left.
Hi, thank you for those tips. They were really great to hear. My name is Sam Kulikov, and I actually work with a nonprofit organization called the Left Right Initiative that kind of focuses on a lot of what you guys are talking about. And my question is sort of specific to Kansas City area. We use music, media, and art as mediums to help kids in the Kansas City area to kind of cultivate productivity methods that are helping them, you know, to curate work ethic, discipline, and completion of tasks that will eventually promote positive mental health. You know, through completion of tasks, we often feel a lot more progression spiritually, mentally, and so forth. One of the biggest challenges that we're facing currently is the transportation issue and how to get people into a centralized location to affect a larger amount of people. And so I've been dealing with figuring out if social media is that method to getting out information, whether it's using an app-based project to get them interacting, or to actually do something face-to-face. I know it's kind of a complex problem, but I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
So I can kind of jump in on that. I throw events for a living, and we solely use social media to get people to those events. So we are, and again, this isn't direct. I've done a lot of nonprofit work, but it doesn't directly relate to you. But for my company, I'm throwing really big parties and events, so it's kind of easier to get people to those things. But essentially, we're trying to make this conversation and this fun and get more information about there all through social media, so people are talking about it and essentially driving them to one location. So for me, we use both. We use the social media. We're getting people talking about it on social media to drive them to one of our events or a leagues or something like that. So I think obviously the younger generation is on social media, so you got to go there first. And then possibly partnering as far as transportation, you could partner. There's so many different ways you could partner with different things. We throw a big event where we partner with the streetcar. So there's a lot of partnerships around transportation for us.
A couple of years ago, I started a charity. It's called Band of Angels. And we faced the same struggle, which was just trying to get the word out to the people that we had this charity available to them. And one thing I would encourage you to do, since you're working with kids, which is exactly what my business is to reach out to the key influencers to kids, which are typically schools and counselors. You're trying to broadcast a huge message across a huge net when you can take that net and bring it down to a smaller group of people that can help get that message out for you. So that would be my first piece of advice. Instead of trying to tackle getting to all of them, get to a few people who have access to getting to all of them to help get your word out. And it'll save you a lot of time and you'll be more effective.
You know, one of the things about marketing is that if I knew how to market your business, I would be doing it. Like nobody can tell you how to market your business. That's part of you figuring out what your business is. So what I'm saying is just try it. You have to try it, and you have to try 100 more things, and then 100 more things, and 100 more things until you figure out which one's actually going to work.
Question in the center.
So one of the things that you were mentioning about work and family and things like that, I'm kind of curious. You know, a lot of us, we have this idea that we go to work, but we live at home. How do you manage having a spouse or having your family? How do you manage? How do you balance that? I'd like to hear from each one of you. Some of you might be married longer or in a relationship longer or shorter, but I'd be curious to see what that's like.
Yeah, I've been married for, I should know this, 15 years. And my wife has been there through it all, through multiple businesses, and through me being more absorbed in the business than I should be. You know, we've struggled with that, and I had to kind of realize how much I was letting myself be absorbed by this business and not giving her attention. So that's been something that I've had to kind of learn how to manage, and I've not always done it well. Through multiple bits, like, okay, I did the first one and I was totally absorbed in that, and I did the next one and was kind of absorbed in that, and eventually I decided that work is work and home is home, and I rarely open my laptop at home anymore. I'll check something, you know, if something's down or somebody's bugging me, you know, I'll respond to it, but I've made a pretty clear separation. But the thing about that is you kind of have to, when you're starting out, you have to get absorbed into something. Like that's kind of the way it works. It's almost like the rite of passage almost to be able to get to it. But
So I've got all of those dynamics going on because I not only have my family, my brother, my sister, my mom, and my dad, and I all work together, but I have a family at home. So I've been married for 25 years. Jana is an incredible person, and she's been very, very key to my mental health for sure. And also trying to balance how, in my situation, I go home and really unload on her on all this stuff, and then she has to go sit at family dinner with my family. So I gotta be careful there. But I would tell you that I got a real good piece of advice when I was going through marriage prep classes 25 years ago from a priest, and he said, just remember this, you can never take it back. You can apologize until you're blue in the face, but you can never take it back. So before you say it, think about that word that's coming off the end of your tongue, because you can apologize, but people don't say things they don't mean. You can't ever take it back. Wow, there you go. So that's obviously a good piece of advice. And then the second, I think, is, like Ben said, my mom and dad were so self-absorbed in our business growing up because they were trying to feed the family and keep it going. I mean, they really started it from nothing. Started from $6,000 living in a person's attic. They borrowed the $6,000 from the guy they were living in the attic. So they just had a completely different path than I've had. I had to learn how to be present in my family at home when I was home. And that was tough because they didn't ever separate home when we were growing up. So with him, turn off the iPad when you're at your kids' events. It's okay. Turn it off and be there mentally and physically for your family, because that email will be there. There's nothing that can't be solved an hour later that'll be there. And turn off your email at least 9,
That's a great question, and I personally struggle with turning off my cell phone and my email. We have a lot of resources all over the globe, so it kind of forces you to be around all day long, which is a struggle. I think it's tough. I've tried to put things in place where we, section out a day where this evening is all about us, and we try and do that every week. But I think anytime that you're going to start on a venture, you have to get buy-in from all your partners. So you wouldn't, create a partnership and go into business with somebody who you didn't see eye to eye with. And I think it's important to realize that your spouse is one of those partners. So make sure that they have buy-in and that they are invested in the amount of time that you might have to spend to get something off the ground. And that's what they want for your family as well. And when you get that buy-in, then you have support at home instead of additional stress, which snowballs. So, my wife is great. She's over there in blue pants. And, anything I do, she typically is on board and supports, and that makes it a lot easier. And then sometimes I come up with ideas and she's like, nope, just go put your head back in the couch. So that's great.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for hopping up at the last minute and doing this and, sharing with all of us. I'm going to do a little play on our last question, and instead of asking what can we as a community do to help you, ask you guys, what can we as a community do to help each other?
That is a good question. I was thinking about it the other day, and I don't know if anybody's on the Startup KC Facebook thread, but there's always a lot of good conversation in there. And it's a lot of the conversations about, how do I raise money? How do I do this? And I was thinking about it. There are a lot of good product creators here in Kansas City. And I was curious how many of us go out of our way to use that product to support Kansas City instead of something else that might fit our business needs a little more. So whether it's a project management tool or an accounting tool or things of that nature, how often do we say, okay, this maybe isn't the best, but I believe in Kansas City, I believe in the community, and I'm going to support them even when they're not on top because I know where they can go. So ask yourselves that. How often do we maybe, go out of our way to help support things that are local versus always shopping for what's best? Obviously you have to balance between business success, but there's a lot of great products out there. What are we doing to support them?
I think mine is more just continue to come to places like this. And then when you're here, don't just come in and leave. And this is probably especially for younger people in the room. There's a lot of knowledge sitting right next to you. Be okay with just tapping that person on the shoulder and introducing yourself. And if you see people that consistently come and ask good questions here, walk up and talk to them and ask them to go to get coffee or lunch. I've loved this room. I've been coming here for 4 years, and I've met so many great people already, a lot of connections to many different parts of the city. And as somebody who's now been doing it for 25 years, I would love to help somebody else who's just getting going deal with that mental thing and just help calm them a little bit. So don't be afraid to walk up and continue to build your network with people that you might not think are going to be very receptive. I've been really shocked with some of the big names in Kansas City of big businesses that I've called up or I've emailed and said, hey, would you go meet me for coffee or would you meet me for lunch? And they said yes. And so don't be afraid to do that, because that's really, really powerful and it will help you so much.
There's kind of been a conversation for a few years in the community about being modest in Kansas City and how we're maybe a little too modest. So I'd like to see more bragging and more celebration of what's going on here. I think that we need to really celebrate. I think we kind of we feel like maybe that's a little uncouth or something like that, but I'd like to see a lot more of that.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And if you guys have enjoyed, yeah, big round of applause. If you guys enjoyed this conversation, you can continue this conversation around mental health next week at Startland News' Innovation Exchange. So we'll have that on the announcements on the 1 Million Cups website and app and all that. So if you want to keep this conversation going, Innovation Exchange next week at Think Big. Thank you guys for coming out. Next week, our presenters are glass, water, lead-free lures, and Fan Food. So we hope to see you next week, and please bring a friend. Thank you.